Well, good afternoon. My name is Tom Romaine. I'd like to call the July 10 Tree Advisory Commission meeting to order. And let's start on our left and do introductions.
I'm Steve Kaler, City Engineer.
Lisa Langer, board member.
Tom Romaine, board member.
Arlen Body, board member.
Tom Schmitz, Park and Recreation Director.
Okay, thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda
I'll approve that.
or amend the agenda. I believe Steve Kohler may have a amendment.
Mr. Vice Chair, I would recommend an amendment to the agenda. The 2020 preliminary budget request is due June 26th, so it would be appropriate if perhaps in new business you could add the 2020 budget recommendation to your agenda.
Okay, any more amendments to the agenda? I would entertain a motion then to approve the agenda as amended.
I'll approve that.
I'll second.
The motion's been made and seconded to approve the amended agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed, that same sign? Okay. Motion is approved. I would also entertain a motion to approve the 2019 May Tree Advisory Commission meeting minutes, or if there are amendments, we should entertain those as well.
Mr. Chair, or Mr. Vice Chair, on old business, 5.1 Broadway tree planting update, the fourth line says this May they replaced 13 trees. Actually, that was May of 2018. So I wonder if we should amend it to correctly state which May we're talking about.
You on the fourth line, that should.
It was May of 2018.
May of 2018
Yes.
instead of this May.
Correct.
Has that been captured for the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, are there any other updates or changes to the May meeting minutes? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to accept the amended meeting minutes for May.
I'll approve that motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving on to old business, Buckthorn update and Conservation Corps crew. I see that Ellen is not here, so or Dr. Vancouver. So what we had discussed was that at the previous meeting we were going to get we had an estimate. I did talk to Dr. Vancouver, and she is interested in moving ahead with the use of the CCM crew. Hi. Oh my goodness. We're talking about the Buckthorn update and the Conservation Corps crew. So, could you update us on where we are with Buckthorn? And I wouldn't if. Would you be more comfortable if we got a chair over there?
No, it worked
Okay.
real good. No,
Okay.
Brenda and I did a full day morning's work. Ellen Vancura, 833 Cottonwood Street. I'm here to give an update on the New Ulm Volunteer Buckthorn Project. Glad to be here. There's a lot of exciting things. I think I'm going to start out with, I see Jordy Veit is here, and he is an adjunct professor of biology at Mankato State, and he is interested in doing a project. If you would like him to speak, he can speak better than I can, but he's putting together the proposal, and I think there's a grant, et cetera, on the trying to figure out what's the best thing to plant after buckthorn has been removed. on the forest floor. So, Jordy has been volunteering his time a lot this spring, and very helpful. What else can I say? He's on another commission, I believe, and it might be worthwhile to have him speak. The second thing is some help. Tom Romaine, our chairman, has apparently there's a conservation corps group in Mankato,
That's correct, yeah.
and we've never been able to have one, and I think that is on the agenda as far, because I think it is a budget item. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
So I'm very excited about that possibility. And I hadn't heard from Sentence to Serve lately, so I actually emailed them yesterday, and while we were working on the trail today, Eric Bruns, who is the senior, he's been there the longest time, came through, and he had lost all his contacts, so he asked me if I could give him Tom's contact, and he actually drove through because he had lost mine, and he looks like he might give us a day in August, which would be great. So.
Yes, it would, that'd be wonderful.
Yeah, he doesn't have any, he said, it's very interesting, he said with the job market the way it is, people, even if however you get to Sentence to Serve, they have jobs.
Yeah.
And people, so, and that's all I know about it. But he was encouraging, and we've worked together before, and we work well together. So that's something to look forward to. As far as the start of the season, meaning after winter, we were really hampered by mud. There was just about nowhere we could go until June that we just didn't sink. But what took the place of that is invasives are just becoming more and more of a problem. And I want to bring up, I've just become aware of this you know, I've looked at the pattern and what's been brought in or what's there now that wasn't there in a year before. And I have a question is about the protocol for, you know, cleaning the mower blades. Is there protocols where, you know, once you've been somewhere where there's leafy spurge, you have to clean it? Or, because it looks like leafy spurge showed up this year for the first time. And that stuff's awful. That's actually what I was doing when I sprained my ankle, taking leafy spurge out of my storm pond. Sorry. So, another thing that's really been a problem is wild parsnip, but we got rid of all that. But that took 2 to 3 hours. See, so besides the mud, we've been so consumed with taking out invasives. The number one that and Jordy volunteered a lot was we had quite a garlic mustard problem, and if you don't get nearly 100% of it out before it goes to seed, you've got just as much next year. But we were pretty compulsive about it, and it was only in one section, and as far as we know, we got all the garlic and mustard out as humanly possible. So we learned a lot, you know. We know, I think there's a lot of it's a biennial, and there's a lot of the first year plants that I think, with permission, I would like to spray, you know, the dilute Roundup. Otherwise, but I never knew what the first year plants looked, but you don't know until you do it, you know, and so we spotted all the first year plants and took out all the second year plants. And we bag them and put a sign on, DNR approved for landfill. And the Park and Rec guys take it away for us. So I think we had 20 to 30 bags of garlic mustard. James Rocket has become a big problem. We've taken all that out. Didn't have time because of, you know, the mud and the garlic mustard to get a lot of it before it went to seed, but we've taken even all this, you know, we've taken it all out, let's put it that way. And then we've got all the, found another one today, but we've got all the wild parsnip out. And now there, you know, there's a lot of Canada thistle, but it hasn't formed a mat and it hasn't gone to seed, so we're just kind of doing that as we do buckthorn. We're finally down to that, you know, and then deadheading the leafy spurge. Hopefully it doesn't form a taproot.
Ellen, where are you working, in what part of New Ulm?
Well, we worked, all the garlic mustard was 16th to 12th.
Along the bike trail?
Yeah,
Oh,
on the
okay.
west side. It's all the bike trail.
Oh,
I haven't been anywhere else for 3-4 years. And then, most of the other stuff is from 12th to 7th, which is 5 blocks. Doesn't seem long, but it is when you're going inch by inch. So, and my one question is, you know, if there isn't a protocol for cleaning the blades in between, was some grass planted along the bike trail like in the last 2 years?
Ellen, I'm not certain about that. You know, I think the public utilities did some work somewhere along a right-of-way in that vicinity somewhere. And they may have placed a ground cover in there if they
Seems
trenched
to be
a line or
scattered.
something. I'm not certain, but, you know, when the trail was built initially, I'm sure there was a seed
Yeah, it's
mix
just
for the
maturing,
shoulders.
you know, it's just maturing, and then for a couple years, we were just down on, you know, the first section. Okay, and so kind of with just Brenda's back for her third summer, Brenda Longworth for her third summer. We've got a goal with just, when there's just the two of us, to be as efficient as possible, and that's to take down all the female trees we can find first. And then to pull all, and with the wet weather, we can pull a lot of, you know, 20 seedlings at one time, and it's a lot easier just to pull them when they're easily pulled than waiting till, you know, they need to be lopped and dabbed. So I think that's the plan, and Brenda buys into it. So we're just, for 2 people, we're being as efficient as we can, but it really would be nice if we could get Conservation Corps for a day, and then Eric Bruns, and I would have, you know, I'd comb the hills and give them my recommendation so we get the most out of their time, you know, so they're not just willy-nilly. You know, it's the big trees that are back. You know, now, you know, that's a block and a half from the bike trail up to German Street. And kind of make sure we can contact private landowners. And then there's a perennial problem of all that awful buckthorn with a million, some of those trees have at least 2,000 berries on them, and it's right, you know, 6 feet away from where we're trying to clean it out. So it'd be nice if we could make some headway with Mr. Ashenburner.
Okay, well, thank you for your report, and I'd like to extend my thanks and the commission's thanks to you and Jordy for the work you're doing on dealing with invasives, and I know what you're dealing with, because when I lived on South German Street, if I didn't keep after it, the crown vetch and leafy spurge would take over my tree planting in my backyard, along with
Yeah.
the thistles, so.
You know, I found a first patch of crown vetch. No, that was in my storm pond. If there's any crown vetch, it hasn't it's caught my eye. Okay,
If,
Thank
if you
you.
could stay there for just a second.
sure, oh, yes.
The second part of this piece of old business was the Conservation Corps crew. I had made contact with Doug Ekstrom, who runs the Conservation Corps crews out of Minnesota, Mankato, pardon me. And the cost of the crew is about in the neighborhood of $1,000 a day.
Oh, that's quite pricey.
Yeah, well, you get a 5-person crew with that.
Oh, but
With-
you can you imagine what 5 professionals or, what can do
Trained
work?
personnel.
But then, and Brenda and I call each other now deputy goats, because Molly got the goats, we're the deputy goats, but we'd be glad, we would want to work with them. We'll do anything.
Okay, so could we count on you and perhaps Jordy to pick a site and be there the day that the crew can be there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the advance, yeah, oh, sure.
And then,
I have one date that I cannot change, it's like the 30th of July, but I have no idea, do we have to wait till September, or, do you have any idea about the availability? Well, it's gotta be, you've gotta talk about it, and there's gotta be the budget.
well, the questions that I've posed to Tom Schmitz is, I'm not sure how the tree commission can spend money on doing this. And this is sort of entering into a contractual agreement with the Conservation Corps of Minnesota, which I'm certain we don't have the authority as a tree advisory commission to do that. So I think that at this point, for the tree commission, is that we should probably, and jump in if anybody else wants to discuss this, is we should probably have a motion to recommend that we go ahead and hire the CCM crew for a day, and then have them coordinate with you on the site and supervision. And I need
And worry about paying them later.
need somebody to
Would it-
make
but
that
we-
motion.
but
and
would we-
can second it, then we can discuss it.
Would we say that the tree commission's made a motion or is making the recommendation, and would that go before what, the city council then to approve?
I'm hesitant to say yes, no, or sideways on that at this point, but
Well, I'm just wondering the procedure.
Oh, excuse me, Vice Chair and Commissioners. I think you already made that motion at the last meeting. According to the minutes at 6.8, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but I thought the last meeting you already passed a recommendation to move forward with this and work the details out with Ellen and her crew, and then, of course, city staff when it comes to the contractual agreement with,
To haul it
Conservation
away.
Corps.
Do they haul it away themselves, or?
I don't know about those details yet,
Oh, okay.
but,
I was really impressed.
Commissioners, do you see that also? Engineer Kaler, do you see that they already moved at the last meeting to move forward and direct staff to work on this, or does there need to be action taken here?
Mr.
at
Vice
this
Chair, I guess I would feel more comfortable if the commission offered a new recommendation. I can't remember the particulars. I know the minutes sound like it happened, but I'm not certain. So it wouldn't, I don't think it would be redundant.
Sure.
To have a new motion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Tom, what was their fee for
it's in the neighborhood of $1,000 a day.
okay, according
Is
to?
that 8 to 5?
Yeah, 980 for,
A four-person crew, it says in the minutes, was $980 per day. A five-person crew was $1,225 per day.
Would
So-
I be able to just talk to the head person and just ask how they, I've seen them, what the hillside at Flandreau looked like after they had been in off of Indian Point, and I was really impressed with, and I don't know how many days there, but I did see how they, and I've seen it also one other time at more the entrance of Flandreau, and I mean, if, yeah, you know, just to maximize their time. Because we don't want them to dink around with what we can do. We want them, you know, just to get a big chunk of that.
okay, and they
Those
can,
heavy trees that are up the hill.
they can apply the herbicide if we supply it.
Yeah, okay, well, if, I've never had any trouble having, you know, getting Roundup or Garland 4. And I would sure ask them about how they, you know, yeah.
So at this point, I'm kind of looking for some guidance from Mr. Kohler or Mr. Schmitz on the process we have to go through to get, spend commission money to do this and have the city enter into some sort of contractual agreement with the
Yeah,
CCM.
sure. Vice Chair Romaine and Commissioners, I would recommend that you just pass on another recommendation directing staff and the commission to work with the Buckthorn volunteers to contract with the Conservation Corps for a day, period.
Okay.
Before we do that, I just was wondering, Flandreau used the goats, and do we have any idea what the cost of goats are compared to this cost?
Well, what kind of began our thought about doing this was Dr. Van Cora's comments that there are large buckthorn on the
So
site.
this could be for the big, so
That-
this is looking at those big trees?
Yes,
Oh, getting out the big stuff, which goats could not.
get at.
Well,
Okay.
and I've always had the question about the goats, is it, you know, it's like, it's black dirt. And then the goats, I don't know, I've never watched them eat, but if they don't pull out the roots, it just comes back. I mean, you know, I don't know, but Molly maybe knows all those questions, and I'd love to talk to these folks. And I think Jordy, you know, what's the next step? Are they gonna plant something, or, so, there's a lot of questions I have.
Ellen, at the last meeting, I don't think you were at,
No, I wasn't.
Scott Sparlin brought up the use of the goats at Flandreau, and then I think we were told at that time that it's a 2-year contract. So does anyone else
not
remember
sure.
that?
I
I do
have talked to Molly Trannell Nelson about this just in conversation, and the goats are not selective in what they eat.
No,
No, they are not.
it's just black
And
dirt.
so
They
what
are.
we have is a churned up dirt site, and then if we don't replace that with something, we're just gonna get a mix of whatever pioneer species come back in, which is probably gonna be the same stuff that's on the ground now.
Yeah. I do remember at the last meeting that it was a 2-year contract that they had, that goats would come back in next year. But anyway, we're off the subject. We can go back, because I think what you're talking about is removal of the big trees. So I guess I'll make a motion that we consider working with the Conservation Corps. Is that the name?
Conservation Corps of Minnesota.
Of Minnesota to see if we can enter into a contract for a 1 day of a work
Yeah.
crew to remove large buckthorn trees along the bike trail with Ellen Van Kira and Jordy selecting sites and working with the crew.
Mm-hmm, that would be great.
I think maybe we should say, instead of consider, direct staff to enter into that. I mean, we've already
Excuse me,
done,
what was the part?
Where you said that we should consider doing this, we should direct
Well,
staff
we,
to
we
enter
would,
into a contract.
we would wanna move forward with it and move forward with the process to enter into an agreement and work with city staff to determine the process.
Yeah, because, you know, I'd want them to do, like, I was there yesterday when they took there was about 3 weeks worth of piles there, and they're very efficient, and, you know how to stack, and you know, if the city could haul it all away, of course, it may be so massive that's impossible, but I'd rather just have them do what they can do fastest, you know, is cutting them down, putting the herbicide, and bringing them to the bike trail edge.
Okay,
So I
Thank
made
you.
a motion.
yeah.
I'll second that motion. We go
Mr. Chair,
ahead
I
with it.
believe it should be a recommendation no matter what, because you don't have the authority to contract,
Right.
in my judgment. So wherever it's gonna go, I don't know if it can go to the city manager or the city council.
That's why I kind of put out that direct staff.
Okay, but it's a recommendation,
Okay,
in my judgment.
Yeah.
Is
So
that
I
what-
will
this is
make a
what-
recommendation.
And I'll second the recommendation.
all those in favor? Before we do that, can you read back what you've got down there in the minutes? Or we just
Vice
on a
Chair
tape?
Romaine and Commissioners, my understanding of the recommendation, the motion is simply to recommend that the city contract with the Conservation Corps of Minnesota for, you know, at least one full day of buckthorn removal
Okay.
on the southern portion of the trail.
With payment coming from the tree
Tree
commission
Advisory Commission account,
budget.
correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, let's call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Anything else on buckthorn or invasive species? Okay,
Well, excuse me, Vice Chair Romaine and the Commissioners, I don't know if Jordy Veit would like to come to the microphone, but he and I have been corresponding on a project that he would like to conduct on city property in conjunction with the University of Minnesota, which basically is seeding appropriate vegetation seeds into a forested area that has recently had buckthorn removed from it. And so maybe you want to ask Mr. Veit to talk about his.
I would very much like to hear what you have to say, Jordy, but, you know, when we're gonna amend the agenda, we should have probably done that when we do that.
Well,
but
this
please
is
go ahead
under
and speak.
buckthorn. This is under the buckthorn update. I would suggest.
Jordy Veit, 1400 North Garden Street, in town here. So, as Tom said, in Ellen, adjunct instructor at MSU Mankato, I came across this project. It's covered up citizen science. They're looking for volunteers around the state to take woodland areas that have buckthorn, to remove buckthorn from about a 30 by 40 area. And then they are going to provide several different plots. We'll divide that up to, and each plot will have kind of a different seed mix of some plants, trees, shrubs, wildflowers, that type of stuff. And that site will be monitored for several years. I believe their proposal is 2020 through 2022 to see which ones are best at preventing buckthorn from growing back into that area. So I'm still kind of working on gathering some data or some information on that from them, but that would essentially entail getting an area. I'd work with Ellen, picking out an area to do this in, and then divided that up into the plots. They have some other sponsors, per se, that they are working with. So materials, training, all that stuff is provided through this program.
I think this has been the missing piece of invasive species management in Minnesota for a long time, because, you know, once you take the invasive species out, what's next, and I think this is the next step. I'm heartily in agreement with this.
Yeah, it is the next step, and sometimes one of the issues when you go out and take invasives out is if you disturb the soil, that can
Right.
create a whole nother issue, and this is hopefully working to find a better ideal plan for that in the future. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I am willing, I can come back to once I have more information for you as well. This is kind of in the early stages. I just came across this. So.
Okay, would you be willing to continue with this and keep us updated?
Yes, yep,
Okay.
yep, no problem. I can definitely do that. So.
Excuse me, Vice Chair, Romaine, Commissioners, and Mr. Veit. Jordy, do you know when this might begin?
The timeline would be they're getting people together who are going to participate this. So they're in the gathering information stage, I would say, at this point. My understanding their timeline then is over the fall, winter, depending how it works out, to do training and that stuff. And then this coming spring, these plots would be set up and planted.
Okay.
So they are looking, their recommendation is by the end of this year, into fall, that we have the area cleared of buckthorn, and then they will go we'll go into planting right away in the spring.
Mm-hmm. So with this greater understanding we have now, it might be a suggestion, if the commission would like to move forward with this, to formulate a recommendation to the city to
What's-
authorize this with the University of Minnesota.
What's the formal name of the project?
Covered up citizen science, using native plants to control buckthorn. I believe is their specific name. I'm looking to see here. It says led by MIT PPC funded ecological ecologists. So there's ecologists. There's several people actually. I don't have it on this printout here, but there's actually several people involved in the project with that. That's available at the link. This
Yes.
is just kind of a flyer that they sent me for starting point. So.
Well, I would certainly entertain a motion that we recommend to the city that we cooperate with this project to provide a site on city lands where we've removed invasive species to carry out the seeding trials.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to work with Jordy and the cover-up programmer that they have in place with the University of Minnesota.
And I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for bringing that to our
Yep.
attention.
You're welcome.
We're looking forward to working on this.
Yep.
Thanks. Anything else on invasive species management? Okay. Next item is the utility billing and informational insert August, and that's Derek Nelson, who's not available today, and my good partner here, Alan Arlen, and Scott Sparlin. So I guess it's in your court there, Arlen.
I have no update on it at this point.
I did some work on this, and I've got a recommendation to the commission, and that, and I think I sent attachments to an email out earlier, that one side of a two-sided utility insert for this month would be the benefits of urban trees, which is from the Food and Agricultural Organization of the United Nations, and the other one is to the other side would be a modification of the New Ulm Public Utilities Kids Reference Guide because the things we were talking about in May are a lot more complicated than you can cover just on a sheet, and just to identify some websites where people could find further information on that. So Derek did some research on the cost for this. To reproduce the reference guide, to produce a new one, in essence, the prep costs to that are $70. And then to put together a two-sided color copy through Oppitz Printing is $695 for 6,200 to 6,500 inserts. So before I moved anywhere on this, again, we're in this one of these things where we need the city to spend the money. It's not the commission's authority to spend that money. So I guess I'd look for a motion to recommend to the city that we spend the approximately $770 to produce the August insert for the utility bills.
Do we know what the difference would be if it wasn't color? I mean, what color is what raises the cost?
Well, I didn't have, I think the $70 to produce the product from Madsen Inc. is gonna be $70 because whether they color this or not. But it isn't very attractive in black and white.
No, it's not.
Vice Chair Romaine and Commissioners, I have a little information on that. This particular price is a very, very, very good price for two-sided color. It's about a dime a piece. And normally it's 35 cents a piece for double-sided color at most print shops within our community.
I don't know what the timeline is that we have to get this thing done, so.
I would recommend if you want to move forward with this, with the August billing, that you take action at this meeting
Okay,
to recommend this type of utility billing insert. And then the commissioners and staff will work with the vendors to make it happen.
okay.
Okay, so we can approve this? I
We
mean,
can recommend.
we
that
can
this-
recommend, because we're always doing we do utility stuffers, and
And it's in your budget.
it's in the budget.
Mr. Vice Chair, I would agree with Commissioner Langer. The difference, I believe, it's not a contractual service. It's something that's in your budget
Okay,
and that you've been authorized to spend that from within your budget.
All right, then I'll make a motion that we move forward with the utility flyer, two-sided color for the August utility billing cycle.
And I'll second that motion.
okay, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the next item is did we skip over our budget? No, it's further down. Okay, the 2019 Big Tree Contest Catalpa update.
Yes, we got 18 entries, and we went out and measured them today, and we've got all the results here. Do you want to hear them? Or okay, the largest tree that we measured today was 174 inches, and that was located at 807 North German Street, New Ulm.
Oh, I think I
Thank you.
know that tree. So with that, then, will we have a journal article with a picture of the tree? I think that's good publicity.
Yes, Vice Chair Romaine and Commissioners, normally staff will prepare a congratulatory letter coming from the commission and the city to the winner, and then we will work with the winner to publicize it and offer them the award, the reward, which is up to a $200 reimbursement for planting an appropriate tree in city limits.
We did have two individuals that submitted the same tree, so I think as the rules stated, whoever got, submitted that first is the winner, so that's how we determined that.
Is it on private property?
Yes, it is, and neither of the people that submitted it owned the property.
Oh,
Sounds like another successful contest.
Yep.
How many entries were there?
18.
That may be a record high. Well, congratulations, commissioners, for pulling that off again. It's a great annual contest, began by the, Dr. Ann Vogel.
Okay, well, thank you for that compliment. Let's move on with new business. 2019 city reimbursement programs. Mr. Kaler.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. You've got a spreadsheet in your packet. The upper portion of that spreadsheet is dedicated to the city reimbursement program, and as you can see, there's been a total of 9 trees planted to date, total cost of just over $1,900, total reimbursement of $934.07. If you'd like me to move into the budget update, that is directly below that upper portion, shows your budgeted amount, or the budgeted categories on the left side. The first column to the right is the amount, then the expense amount, and your balance on the final column of $4,684.67. So I'm not certain if you have any questions, but it's
Are
pretty
there any
straightforward.
questions for Mr. Kaler? Would you like to talk about the proposed 2020 budget at this time?
Certainly I can. The 2020 budget recommendation is due at the city clerk's office this month, June 26th. So if the commission would like to formulate a recommendation, the last year's budget is shown in that first column to the left with the numbers, total to $6,000. You could duplicate that or rearrange, or however you feel is appropriate for what you'd like to do next year.
you said June 26th. Do you mean July 26th?
Excuse me, July, this month. Yeah.
All right.
I would like to suggest, just to open this up, is that we request an additional $1,000 over the 2019 budget request, as I anticipate that there probably will be a need to continue with perhaps contracting out some of our invasive species work for the bigger stuff that our massive 2-person volunteer crew can't deal with.
So are you making suggesting a $7,000 request?
Yes.
No.
We've spent $1,315.33 yet this year, and we're anticipating, let's say that we're looking at $1,225 for a CCM crew, and then about a $770 flyer in this case, and that's pretty close to $2,000 in expenses this year that we didn't have last year. So are we going to anticipate something like that going forward or not?
We can anticipate that. I remember last year we did not get the money that wasn't spent.
No,
We
there
did
was
not,
No
we were not
carryover.
able to keep. So I don't want that to happen this year. So we'll have to find a way to, do we buy trees in fall and use our budget up? So
What's your pleasure?
I guess I'll make a motion to request $7,000 for the tree commission budget for 2020.
I'll second that.
Okay, any further discussion? Would we want to look, and we're looking at our budgeted amounts as places where we could put it in that budget request. We're asking for another $1,000. Perhaps we should split that between the PUC utility bill insert printing expenses and perhaps tree pest policy and education expenses. I don't, you know, if we're gonna contract, I don't know what slot that additional money should go into.
Mr. Vice Chair, my recommendation would be to add another category, perhaps contractual services. Either put that $1,000 in there or,
Okay,
you know, that way it's pretty clear what you want to do with it. It's entirely up to you.
okay, I don't know that we need a motion for that, but
Right.
that would make sense to put it in that.
Okay, I can forward that if that's near the
Okay.
wishes of the group.
When does the city council consider this?
It's not finalized till sometime in December. I guess I can't tell you exactly. I think maybe it's September when they get the preliminary budget. But I
Just
can,
wondering if it's appropriate that we need to either appear at a budgetary meeting or at a city council meeting where this is considered and be there to perhaps answer questions if appropriate.
Yeah, we'll certainly keep you abreast with that schedule. Did you formalize your recommendation at $7,000 yet?
they made the motion to do $7,000, but didn't
No second or vote?
itemize the category and no vote.
Okay, all right.
We did vote on that motion, didn't we? $7,000.
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see the vote, but,
Second.
Okay,
Hope it's on the tape.
we'll be reviewing the tape, you bet, so.
and you want me to add $1,000 in contractual services?
Yes, please.
Okay. Okay, so that's done.
Any other items for the good of the commission? Okay, hearing none, the next meeting is September 5th, 2019. Get that on your calendar ahead of time so we have a quorum for the next meeting. Thank you for being here for the commission meeting, and thank you, Dr. Vancora and Jordy, for coming and explaining the invasive species program. And if there are no more items, we will be adjourned. Thank you, Mr.